it wouldn't be Emberfest, I think, with not at least one person from Forest giving a talk and joining me on stage. So please welcome Aoife.
Thank you. Thank you, and hi everyone. This presentation is going to focus on engineers taking control of getting tech work prioritized. And I found it very ironic in Gossie's talk where he was mentioning that maybe annoying manager looking for figuring out what's the cost, how long is this going to take? And I was like, oh crap, that's where I'm coming from in my talk. And is this going to be annoying and it's not going to land with anyone? But we'll see how it goes. Before I kick off, I want to firstly define what I mean by tech work. I'm talking about paying down technical debt, refactors, upgrades, performance improvements, and open source contributions. Basically, the things that your product manager isn't going to bring to the table. And this might be a bit of a Marmite presentation with some of you either hating it, maybe me, but hopefully some of you will gain some inspiration. So who am I? My name is Aoife. I'm born, bred and still living in Dublin in Ireland. I'm a lover of travel, good food, attending music gigs, and more recently pickleball, my new obsession. I'm not very good at it, but hopefully with a bit of perseverance we'll get there. I've been with Forest for the last 4.5 years, and I stepped into the director role last year. Up until that point, I had been able to be hands-on on the code, albeit to a lesser and lesser degree as my responsibilities in management ramped up. But for the last 12 months, I've been entirely hands-off. So I do feel like a little bit of an imposter standing up here today speaking to you all. And if I could give you a bit of advice is don't ask me if I'm worried about losing my skills as an engineer. I don't want to talk about it. It's become a favorite topic in all of my skip level one-to-ones with engineers asking me, am I not afraid of my skills becoming stale? And I'm like, this is one-to-one isn't about me, this is about you. But yeah, it's a favorite topic. But obviously, of course I am, but what I'm enjoying at the moment and what I'm focusing on is empowering and growing others, be it new leaders or engineers trying to carve out their path and make an impact in Forest. And a little bit of a small plug for Forest. We are growing our amazing team of engineers, and I'm going to be planning to hire multiple roles soon, including front-end engineers in the spaces around payments, reporting, and improving our communication systems, so things like SMS, email, WhatsApp, and then our agentic AI features related to that as well. So if you are interested, please chat with me after, and I can share more details and timelines. But so WeScale, which is a small story, a little bit more about me and why I ended up choosing to speak about this topic this year. Unfortunately, this story revolves around a sad start to my year when I lost a close family member and very nearly lost another in close succession. So I'm sure many of you who have experienced loss, you know that you start reflecting on your own life, how short it is and how silly you can be with your time. And I don't intend to bring the vibes down here. I'm sure you're all thinking, what on earth has that got to do with getting tech work prioritized? But bear with me, it does have a point. The family member I lost was my uncle, and he was quite simply amazing. I knew that already, but attending his funeral overwhelmingly cemented it for me. He was really against formalized religion, so his family held a small service where they shared stories and moments in his life, played some of his favorite music, and at the end, people were invited to come up and tell their own stories about their time with him. And this was when it hit me that he was a man unlike many. There wasn't just one or two people who stood up. It was non-stop. They had no joke people running up to get to the microphone to make sure that they could share their story. And they ended up having to cut people off because it ran on so long. The stories themselves revolved and centered around a common theme, which were his achievements. He was a plasma physicist. He carried out his related research in Berkeley. He lectured in Queen's. He ran multiple marathons all over the world. He'd received honorary doctorates. He drank a lot of pints, which were in a lot of the stories. He was great crack and he was a joy to be around. So he was, one of those incredibly smart, extremely likable people. And a theme for me in those stories and related to those achievements was that it wasn't just luck that got him them, it was hard work, determination, and perseverance. And afterwards, as well, I was reflecting with my family about the impact he had in his life. He didn't let anything stop him achieving what he wanted. He never complained, he never had excuses or let someone else stand in his way. And now I won't ever have an honorary doctorate, but I knew I needed to stop letting excuses get in the way of me making an impact in my life. But excuses are so easy to use. when it comes to chasing personal goals, I've realized I can be my own biggest obstacle. Not because I don't care, but because I'm great at coming up with excuses. And you'll probably recognize some of these too. The first one is around a lack of motivation. I've told myself plenty of times, I'll do it when I feel more motivated. But the truth is, motivation rarely comes up or shows up before you start. It's when you start doing it and you get that first glimpse of the impact that you're making. So once you've already taken that first step. So if you wait around for motivation, you'll be waiting a really long time. Then there's the fear of failure. What if I mess up? What if people notice that I don't know what I'm doing? What if I make a fool of myself? This went through my head a lot before getting up on the stage today, and that voice can be paralyzing. But the irony is, by trying to avoid failing, we end up failing by default because we never even get started. And another classic excuse is waiting for the perfect moment. I'll say to myself, I'll do it when work is less busy, or I'll start when life calms down, or I'll start next Monday. But life doesn't really calm down. There's no perfect moment. More often than not, the right time is just doing it now. And finally, maybe the one I use most often is a lack of time. I convince myself I'm too busy, that I couldn't possibly fit this in. But when I'm honest with myself, it's not always a lack of time. It's about priorities. Somehow I always find time for Netflix or scrolling on my phone, but the things that could actually move me forward, they're the first to get pushed aside. So yeah, they're my go-to excuses. No motivation, fear of failure, waiting for the perfect moment or Monday, and never enough time. They sound convincing in the moment, but looking back, I can see that they're just ways of me standing in my own way. And again, some of you are sitting here probably wondering, how and when will she get to the point of how to get tech work prioritized? And because I've touched on the issues of getting in the way of achieving personal goals, and so how is that relevant to getting tech work the attention it deserves? In reality, some of the same excuses we use for not making progress in getting tech work prioritized is the same as the ones we use for our personal excuses. They're just framed slightly differently, and in many cases are just more specific. As developers, we allow ourselves to get in our own way of making the impact we want to have. When I meet with engineers, be it in one-to-ones or just have meetings, bumping into them in the office and having coffee, and they tell me, or they're talking about what they want to do and the impact that they want to have. And so I ask them why they aren't making the time to do it, to learn, to improve, to do that work they believe will make an impact. I'm met with so many excuses. And I don't want to say it's all excuses. There's obviously reasonable explanations at time, but there really is a lot of excuses. I'm not going to make you raise your hands here, but I'm going to make a general assumption that many of you might feel that your company or leadership don't give technical work the attention you feel it deserves. If you disagree with this and you do feel your company and leadership do, you're really lucky. You can zone out of this if you want. So I'm addressing the people that do agree. So let's chat about some of the specific excuses you or maybe people in your team are using. And you see these lists of excuses, you're probably going to be like, typical management. But believe me, I've used all of these excuses and more when I was an engineer. And as I've grown in the role, I've realized that engineers actually do have control over so many of these. But let's go through some of them. So feature work, it's always more important than the product work. Why is that? Is it because there's a clear business impact to that product work? Has a product manager spent the time to understand what the opportunity is of doing it? Why, as engineers, shouldn't we be doing the same? Or another excuse being, well, my manager doesn't prioritize it, so I'm not going to get it done. Why isn't your manager prioritizing it? Does your manager understand what's involved, what the effort or the impact is? Or has there just been a Jira ticket created with a title and nothing more, expecting that your manager is going to pull it into the board and say, yeah, let's do this? Your manager is constantly pulled in many directions. Make it easy for them and stop waiting for them to come to you. And the next 2 points relate in the lack of focus time and too many meetings. It's two of the most common excuses that I hear as a manager. But when I ask, have you set dedicated focus time periods in your calendar? Are you switching off Slack when you intend to go into this focus time? Are you saying no to meetings that don't have a clear agenda or relevant to your role? And often the answers are no, with this underlining tone of, I'm waiting for my manager to do it for me or someone to tell me how to do it. But we're all adults and we really are responsible for our own time. Another excuse then I hear a lot as well is, oh, I never get to do the tech work items. They always get assigned to, I'll say Dave. Sorry, Dave. My reaction to that excuse is, well, oh, great, you'd like to work on those items. Thanks for letting me know. Do your teammates know? A lot of engineers actually love doing 100% feature delivery work, and that's okay if that's what they're happy doing and they feel that's the impact they're making. So it's most likely not Dave hogging the tickets. Dave just doesn't realize that you want to be involved. So tell him, and I'm sure he'd be really delighted with the support that you're going to bring. And lastly, my company doesn't give us time to contribute to open source. And this one can feel, and is in reality, a harder one to overcome, but it's not impossible. We have to look at it in the way of, will doing this open source work benefit the business, and how? Make that clear, same as the first point. And stress the point that the open source community should be seen as an extension of the company's dev team. We get out what we put in. This might be a struggle to do at first. The message might not land. So you might need to spend some time figuring out, okay, how to start. Particularly if you're new as an open source contributor, find out if your company offers some learning and development time, and use some of this time to get to grips with that open source contribution. And just make sure that you feel confident doing it yourself before you really start looking at how to build a business case, or how to bring it forward. And I know there's a lot of great people here today that are in that community who can help people get started or put them into that area of focus. So I say no more excuses, but there is one more, and it might be that, well, I don't know what the solution is, or I don't know where to start. So help. And so if I had to boil it down, the single most important thing that as engineers we can do to ensure that we get tech work prioritized is that you've got to show the impact. It's not enough to say that this makes our lives as developers easier. It just won't cut it. You need to link the work directly to what the company cares about. Things like revenue, cost savings, efficiency, or happy customers. Instead of talking about slow builds or painful refactors in abstract terms, flip the story. Say, this will cut release times in half so our customers get new features faster. Or this change reduces downtime, which means fewer angry calls to support. Suddenly, it's not about the developer inconvenience anymore, it's about client satisfaction and business outcomes. And don't just talk in theory. Use real numbers, real examples. Data makes the story harder to ignore. Think of it like your personal finances. If you invest in tech improvements, you get measurable returns, whether that's efficiency gains, lower costs, or even new revenue opportunities. And another angle that really helps is bundling it up. You can say, we can absolutely build that feature, but if we wanted to scale and not break in the next 6 months, we need to do this refactor alongside it. That way, you're not asking for extra time, you're showing how it makes delivery more sustainable. And at the end of the day, it's about telling a compelling story. Frame yourself as a steward of the company's resources as if you were spending your own money. That builds credibility. And if you can connect the technical details to outcomes the business actually values, you'll have a much stronger case. And I can already hear the next excuse. That's great, but where am I going to find the time to build this rock-solid case? And no, I'm not saying you should be doing this in your evenings or weekends or doing hero work where you're trying to slip it in the middle of doing your feature development work. So first piece of advice is to just talk to your manager. Tell them in simple terms the benefits you expect this work could bring. Then ask for a small, reasonable time box to put a case together. And that might mean you need to dig into the company goals, measure the current state, run some tests, and even build a small proof of concept. Once you've done that homework, you can start drafting your case. It doesn't need to be perfect, just lay it out clearly. What's the problem? How will fixing it benefit the business and our clients? And what does the solution look like? And don't present it as one big, massive, scary project. Break it down into small, continuous, deliverable chunks. If you can, give your manager a rough estimate. I'm not talking like it'll be finished on X date. It's like, is it days, weeks, months, or t-shirt sizes if that's what your company uses? And so try to do it as much as possible, piece by piece. That makes it easier for the manager to see that it's achievable. And most importantly, show conviction. Believe in what you're saying. It's really important, because if you don't believe in what you're saying, why should anyone else? And as part of that as well, is like, don't expect this to be something that someone else owns, that you can get to bring the problem, advise on how to do it, and just step back and say, oh, someone else runs the show now. It's something you need to take the lead on. But do ask for support from either your manager or other leads in your company. Be clear about what you need from them, whether it's feedback, advice, or help with refining the case. And so it's not about finding the extra time. It's more about making a smart investment of the time you have and showing you're really serious about it. So I'm going to take a very imaginary example just to illustrate this point. So previously, an engineer might be complaining to their team or the void, "Oh, the build time is so slow. I sit and stare at my screen multiple times a day. I don't want to work on this project anymore. Nobody's giving us the time to make it faster. It's all product, product, product. If they actually let us invest into improving it, we'd actually be able to ship this faster." And so again, you're bringing the problem, but the developer isn't bringing the solution. So if we were to break it down and actually look at, let's try build a case around this. The developer problem is the build time is slow. It's becoming demotivating for them. The solution they know is we need to upgrade our Ember version to allow us to use the latest improvements, which have been cited to improve the build times. And again, these are all imaginary numbers, so don't come for me or challenge me on any of these because I'm making it up. But I in terms of the reading, they're definitely kind of not also completely impossible. But let's say the build times for your project are taking, on average, about 3 minutes for it to start, and rebuilds taking, on average, 30 seconds to do. Be horrible. And if we look at, say, the average number of time a dev is building, maybe it's three times per day, and rebuilding 50 times. And that would add up to about 28 minutes of their day just spent staring at their screen, waiting to see their changes come through. And so we've done a little bit of research, and we've seen that the latest version is cited to reduce our build times by about 32%. If that's true, that would take us down from 28 minutes to 19 minutes, which is a saving of 9 minutes per dev per day. And if the average dev costs €600 per day, this is a number, but it is a number that your manager or someone in senior leadership will have, and it's an average cost, including salaries, expenses, just the general costs of employees. And if we equate that then to €600 per day and the 9 minutes saved, we could be saving €12 a day. And that's just for one dev. If we've 15 Ember devs, that's a potential saving of €180 per day, or 43,200 per year. And so if we do nothing, that's how much we're losing. And if we think about it in the sense of that could be a new grad that we invest in, their salary, investing in their learning and development and the time that we put into it. And so by basically saying, if we don't do this, we're losing 40K to engineers staring at their screen when we could be using that 40K to be spent developing revenue generating features for our clients. And lastly, just using that same 9 minutes, what's the client impact? So imagine we're looking at kind of the average time to completion of features within our teams, and let's say it's taking 2 devs 10 days to implement. With these changes, we could have it dev complete in 3 hours less than the usual time. And that might not sound like much. It's a 4% time saving. But that's 3 hours allowing engineers to move on to the next impactful feature sooner for your clients. Or I'd say there's tons of small improvements or bug fixes that you've been able to complete in 3 hours. So again, it's something else that can be achieved within that time. And there's probably many more impacts even with the upgrades that we can have here if we spend more time into it, such as rendering performance improvements for the clients. And it's important to stress that these numbers might sound small. Okay, €12 per day for an engineer, €100 or €180 for the whole team, 4%, 3 hours on average at a time. It sounds small, but they do compound over time. And so it's thinking about if we were to look at this over a longer period of time, what opportunities are we going to miss in the future without this time and cost saving? And is potentially this time just going to get worse and worse the more we build on top of it? And again, as part of your business case to build is again, a very simple example, but breaking it up into what is the steps to complete, and potentially can you give a high level estimate to your manager on how long it might take, and highlight as well where gradual benefits might be seen. So we might not have gotten to the end. We're at the point where we're adopting the latest features and practices and we're really seeing that rebuild time, but there's potentially improvements along the way that we're going to start seeing, be it for the developers or for our clients and the business as well. So There are some really practical strategies that you can use day to day that aid in crafting this rock solid business case, because really that case is the most important thing. But the first one is prioritizing your focus time. So what I mentioned at the start is one of the excuses. It's hard to build a case for anything if you're constantly pulled into meetings or firefighting. So make sure you personally are protecting some deep work time so you can actually investigate, measure, and prepare your argument properly. And leverage your team and the people around you. It doesn't have to be a solo mission. Share the load. Someone might help gather data, another might sketch out a proof of concept. And so when the whole team is involved, not only is the case stronger, but it also shows leadership and that it isn't just your opinion, it's actually one that's a collective need. Make your progress visible. If you quietly fix something and no one notices, it doesn't help the bigger cause. Celebrate the small wins, whether that's the faster builds, fewer incidents, or smoother releases. Shining a light on these improvements builds momentum for the next piece of work. And when I say that, I know it can feel weird celebrating your own successes, but do it and make sure you're celebrating the people around you, whether they're the ones that are helping or you're seeing them off and working on tech work, because you know what they're doing at the end of the day is for the greater good. And lastly, engage the developer community, whether that's inside your company, sharing the knowledge with your other team that might be facing the same challenges, because obviously they could help, and also they might want to assist in maybe shifting that culture in where tech work isn't being prioritized. And then outside of your company, get involved in the wider dev community with conferences like this one, blogs, meetups. It not only gives you fresh ideas for tackling these issues, but it also builds credibility, because of all the great talks we've heard today, I'm sure people are coming away with a lot of great ideas of things that they can bring back to their company. So as part of your case, you can be like, hey, like this isn't just us having this problem. I've actually seen other companies solve this by investing in doing this upgrade, or I've learned today in what's going to be coming in the future, and here's how these latest versions are going to actually benefit us. Together, these strategies create visibility, momentum, and support. And there are three things you're going to always need if you want to get tech work to compete with the shiny features on your roadmap. Well, this, I know, all sounds really easy, as if it's like, yeah, I'll just go back tomorrow and I'll start doing this and it'll get pulled up to the top of the pile of priorities. I'm not saying that's the case. And I'm not saying it's going to be easy and it might not work the first time you do it. There could be challenges in your organization, such as feature-driven or hero cultures, the skepticism of the value that you're presenting, or a lack of prioritization framework even in the team to even get started of how you pull these things up. And so you might not be able to solve these problems on your own, but you really do, and you should use your influence. So you might be the first engineer in the company to start with the approach. You might not know where to start, and you need support. And if your manager isn't showing you the support that you need or showing the interest, is there any other leaders in your company that could support you? Maybe the leaders are sitting here today. And is there anyone in your network who could coach you? And I said, look, it might not tie to your company goals and objectives, but it also doesn't mean it never will. So play the long game. Know that you might not win every battle, but consistently showing the impact builds your credibility. And over time, your leaders may start turning to you for the input on how to balance the technical versus feature work and start moving towards a culture of continuous improvement. Because we know if we're not paying down that technical debt, it's going to catch up with us. And really, you don't want it to be in a point where it's an I told you so moment. You'd rather, let's try and fix this and get to a point where it's improving proactively. So yes, you can't always get tech work prioritized, but you can influence how visible it is, how it's framed, how much gets bundled into your regular delivery, and that's often enough to shift the culture gradually. So, in summary, let's recap on the ways you as an engineer can influence getting that tech work prioritized in your company. So first and foremost is to shift the focus to impact. Always link what you're doing to outcomes the company actually cares about, whether that's revenue, efficiency, or happier customers. If you can make it clear why the work matters, you're halfway there. Secondly, manage your time effectively. Protect your focus blocks. Only attend what's relevant to your role. Break your work into impactful chunks and make sure your progress is visible and is being celebrated. Time is limited, so use it smartly. Third, then, engage with conviction and with confidence. Believe in the case you're making, lead it, show that confidence and clarity early, because if you don't, no one else will. And finally, push forward relentlessly. There will always be obstacles, competing priorities, and excuses, both yours and other people's. But don't let them stop you. Keep showing value, iterating, and keep making your work visible. When you switch your approach and mindset with these in mind, what once felt like just tech debt becomes work that actually gets noticed, valued, and prioritized. And I can give you a final just phrase to land on and piece of advice. It's just to get out of your own way. Because as engineers, I know there's all these excuses that we can use, that it's, you're not the one making the decision, but you actually have a hell of a lot more control and influence into getting tech work prioritized, way more than you realize. And again, iterating, I have been that engineer. I have been in that point where I don't feel like it's something I can do or something I can control. But retrospectively, I realize I rely heavily on my engineers to be bringing this stuff up for me, and I need them to be doing it. So yeah, that's my advice, is just make sure to get out of your own way and move your path forward. So thank you. And if you would like to chat further on this, or maybe you have an amazing approach that your company is doing, I'd really love to hear about it. And because I think the more we share and the more approaches that we can take to each company, the better things that are going to be for us all. So thank you.
Well, yes.
I hope you're happy with my question. So you said you want your engineers to show up with this approach. Is there a way you, together with other tech directors or people in your role, try to also meet your developers by changing your view on tech work?
So in Forest, for example, we've multiple alignment groups. So we have a dedicated Ember alignment, for example, where our front-end engineers come and meet. It's actually our Tomic, who's here today, leads that with the team. And they're bringing forward like all the potential ideas, and those could be small little changes or the bigger things that need to move forward. And then we have an overall, like what we call our Staff Plus Forum, which is our staff and principal engineers who work together to look at, okay, of all the tech work we want to do, what's the most impactful for the business, what are things that we could do, and how that might potentially be spread down to the teams. And then from the management perspective, we then work with them on those priorities and try and understand, like, is what they're putting forward clear? Does their case make sense? And then we then have a dedicated amount of time we dedicate per quarter in our team. So we say a minimum of 10% has to be dedicated to paying down this technical debt over time. But we don't come and tell them what they do. We need them to be coming to us and saying what that work is and why it's important to do.
All right. Well, thanks again, Aoife.
Thank you.